You're just like, this is so much more fun than my other game, Microsoft Encarta.
No, I only had Clippy.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't afford Encarta. Like you rich kids. Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. I'm Donald, once again joined by Brad.
Hey.
Hey Brad, have you ever been really disappointed by something in your life?
Yeah, that happens frequently.
A younger version of me, once upon a time, loved Chrono Trigger.
As one does.
And because it was great, it was wonderful. And then, let's see, it'd be, 2000.
Yeah.
Chrono Cross, the follow-up to Chrono Trigger, was coming. And GameSpot reviewed it and gave it a perfect score.
Which they've only done 14 times in their history.
I was so excited because here it was, the sequel to my favorite Japanese RPG.
Yes.
So I ran out, 19 years old, with my money in my hand. I gave the money to the cashier at GameStop. He gave me Chrono Cross. I ran home, and about 5 hours into it, I decided I was never going to visit GameSpot.com again, and I have held true to that.
Then some good came out of all of this. I had a different experience with Chrono Cross. I was the one who suggested that we play it for the show, because I remember liking it. And one thing that happened in my life is Baldur's Gate came out at the very end of 1998. And I played that through all the beginning of 1999. And when I did, it ruined all other RPGs for me. I couldn't go back to Final Fantasy or any of the games that I previously had played through and enjoyed. Because Baldur's Gate was just so much better as an RPG than any of those games. It just didn't appeal to me anymore. But Chrono Cross came out after that, and I played it, and I played all the way through it. I remember liking it. And I was like, we should do this for the show. I had it on my PlayStation 3. I bought it off of PSN when it was on sale, and it was just sitting there. I'm like, we gotta play this, you know. I remember loving this, and I don't know why I thought that back in 2000, because playing it now, it is rough.
You said, hey, we can play Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, and I was excited to play Chrono Trigger again. I think I was already playing it when you suggested, because I'm kind of always playing Chrono Trigger.
There's just a game of Chrono Trigger going on in your life at all times.
There's always a save game on my Vita of Chrono Trigger at a various point in the game that I can just pick up and be like, oh, Chrono Trigger, this makes me feel hope. But Chrono Cross makes me feel no hope. I don't know how this game reviewed so well. People must have just been like, we have to say this is good because it is the sequel to Chrono Trigger. And that's a beloved game, and this one has to be good. But I'm not even sure this is actually a follow-up to Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that they show up near the end and be like, we swear this is a Chrono game. We promise.
Yeah, you know, the really disappointing part is Chrono Cross does a lot of things right. It's got a great soundtrack, bright visuals that actually look really good, which a lot of PS1 games, especially the stuff that Square is putting out around that time, it uses that same look as like the Final Fantasy games or like Vagrant Story or whatever, but it looks really sharp. You know, interesting environment, I guess, this like tropical island setting. It's got a unique battle system that they tried to do something different, but yeah, it doesn't live up to all its potential.
Before we get too far away from it, you just mentioned the battle system.
Yeah.
Now, on this show, you debuted the phrase Japanese menu torture.
Yes.
When describing just about how every JRPG handles its battle system.
Yeah.
Now, Chrono Cross, you start out with a stamina bar, and you can use your stamina bar to select light, medium, or heavy attacks. So what they did to you specifically, coming off Baldur's Gate, was said, okay, pick an attack off this menu, now pick a level of that attack. Oh, you got stamina left, pick another level, pick another level. Hey, you want to pick another? Oh, you're out of stamina now. You can perform your attack. How did young Brad survive this waterboard version of Japanese menu torture?
I have no idea. This combat system is brutal. I mean, they tried to do a really cool thing with like everybody has an innate color and every color has an opposite. And if you use enough of the right kind of spells, it makes it so that that color is more powerful and, you know, some of your enemies get stronger or weaker. And it's a neat idea. This battle system is horrible. It takes forever to get through any fight. You know, a little skirmish against some guy that you're gonna stomp all over, 5 minutes easily. You know, the animations take way too long. There's too many things to pick. It is just rough. And that really is what kills what, you know, had the potential to be a really awesome game for me.
I have this feeling that they wanted to differentiate themselves from Chrono Trigger. So they said, look at this battle system. It's quick, it's zippy, you got the combos, you're in, you're out.
You could turn the speed way up if, you know, you're kind of just plowing through an easy area.
It's super fun. Everyone loved it. They're like, well, we just got to do the opposite of everything Chrono Trigger did with its battle system by making the worst thing ever introduced into a JRPG. Like, you could probably read part of a Game of Thrones novel, like, to at least the 200th page before you get through one fight of Chrono Cross.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I played this game all the way through in 2000. Playing it now, at least I had my phone, and it was like, all right, well, I'm just going to read this article while, like, the battle plays out, you know, while I wait for this guy to do, like, his 10-minute animation to cast a fireball. It's a really weird approach that they had in making this sequel, because normally, when you're making a sequel, it's like, okay, we made this game, people liked it, we're going to do something that's kind of in the same vein, so that, you know, the people who enjoyed playing that get to play this and they'll also enjoy it. And Chrono Cross went the opposite way. They're like, let's have it be nothing like Chrono Trigger.
So Chrono Trigger had many fun different eras to visit. Some like dystopian future. I mean, that's not fun. The people had no food. You got to visit the prehistoric era, medieval times. Here you get to visit the same exact place that you left, but on a different timeline.
Yeah, it's like a parallel universe thing, and in one of the parallel universes, it kind of sucks. Like, things are dead or dying and stuff. And in the other parallel universe, things are better, but you're going around killing all of them and, like, making it suck as much as your home world.
My favorite parallel universe in this world is the one where Surge is dead. Because think of just how happy those people are that Surge is dead.
I just love the fact that you spend this whole game playing a character named after a soda that nobody bought after a few years of its release. Just like, what's your character's name? Surge! They spell it differently, but the guy's name is Surge!
Maybe he's Russian. He's Sergei.
I actually, the first time I played it, I did add an I to his name. And then I felt obligated to, like, change all the names to, like, slightly modified Eastern European sounding ones, and it got to be kind of annoying.
Was it more or less annoying than having to chase dragons around in circles as your first quest?
Yeah. I don't know if it was as annoying as that. It was less annoying than the accents that they felt obligated to give every character in the game for God only knows what reason. Like, the very opening part is kind of like a flash forward, and it's like a lady with a French accent talking to a woman with a German accent, and then, like, they get interrupted by somebody with an Australian accent, and it's like, why is this happening?
What is Kid's accent? Kid is one of the characters in this game. Please don't play this game to find out why. But what is her accent that they make you read?
I think it's Australian. Maybe it's South African. Like, the best description I've ever heard of South African accent is just that it sounds like Australian, but it's not any fun.
Crikey. There was a Australian dolphin in one of the Breath of Fire games, and they did a really good job with that. You're like, oh, I'm reading an Australian accent here. They didn't overdo it, but they just like accented and extended words, and you're like, okay, I see what you're going for here. Here, they put random letters in words and took other letters out, and you're tasked figuring out what's wrong with this girl. You're like, are you Australian, or did you have severe head trauma? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you were just like in a fight with a tank, so maybe you just got bonked on the head. Unless you've had to do it, it's hard to express how irritating it is to read someone who's speaking with an accent where in order to express that, they just like wrote everything they say phonetically. It is super annoying. It should really just be like the first time you meet a character, like in parentheses, with a French accent, and then just write the words the way they are. Like, I'm not reading this out loud to myself. I'm not, doing all that or anything. I was reading up on this game. There was too much dialogue to write accents for it. They had to come up with some kind of algorithm that changed the dialogue to have the accents that they wanted. So somebody had to do special programming just so that you could have one character who, anytime a word ends in cha, he says it louder.
I wish that program had crashed and been unrecoverable on that hard drive, and they would have lost the ability to do that to the dialogues in this game. Because at some point you're reading the garbage that is just filling your screen, and like, I have no idea what is going on in this barely held together plot whatsoever. Your first jump through time, you go to an alternate reality where Serge is dead, and instantly you are attacked by some people who want you, and then Kid shows up, and she's like, no, I'm gonna fight with you, and Serge is like, I'm not even gonna ask questions, I'm just gonna start fighting. And the guys who came to get you weren't like, we're here to kill you. They're just like, hey, yo, dude, come with us. And he's like, that seems suspicious. I'm in a time where I don't exist anymore. I'm gonna just go with this crazy garble-mouth speaking child.
The whole plot line, like, it starts out like, you go to collect a necklace for your girlfriend. You go to the beach and you get sucked into another world. And then it's a parallel universe where you're dead. And you have to fight some guys. And you break into a mansion. And then you go to like some mysterious place and touch a thing that switches your body with the antagonist, and that was like his plan all along, was to trick you. But then it turns out that like that was part of somebody else's plan all along to trick him, and then that was part of like the dragon's plan to get their power back. There's like plots on top of plots on top of plots, and it's like, it's a video game. Like, if you saw a movie that was this convoluted, you wouldn't be like, man, that was super deep and challenging. You'd be like, this movie made no damn sense. Like a movie, all you have to do is watch the story. Here, you have to play a game, and then every so often they throw some story at you, and you have to keep it all straight in between battles. And it's just like, don't do that. It's a video game. I shouldn't have to take a notebooks full of notes and then go on a website of some super fan who's desperately trying to convince people that this game makes sense.
One of the great parts in this game is Serge destroys an entire sea, and then Chrono, Meryl, and Luca show up.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, remember this is a Chrono Trigger game. We have to keep reminding you of that because we know we've screwed up real bad in the creation of this crap fest.
Were you surprised to learn that this game was intended to be a Chrono Trigger sequel all along? Because I honestly, playing it, I got the impression that like they were making a different game, and at some point when the game was already started, they were like, oh, hey, we'd like to make a sequel to Chrono Trigger, so just like tack some Chrono Trigger stuff into this already existing game. Like, that's how it feels. It's not what actually happened. Like, they did this on purpose. This was their plan for a Chrono Trigger sequel, was to make a game that is nothing like Chrono Trigger.
When doing my prep for this episode, I started reading interviews with the creator, and what you're saying is actually true. They looked at it and said, we want to make a game that's the sequel to Chrono Trigger, but it's our own thing, but has the spirit of Chrono Trigger, but it's not Chrono Trigger, it's Chrono Cross. And I think they wrote that on a chalkboard somewhere, and no one had any idea what that statement meant. So they just started making stuff, and he's like, okay, yeah, this fits. And then at some time when it was too late, when they're like, there's a supercomputer named Fate they had to know that this was just a giant train wreck. Like, there had to be a QA person who walked into a room, slapped the director in the face.
You know, like I was alluding to before when we talked about the plot, like at some point it turns out that everything you were doing was actually a secret plot by the supercomputer Fate, and it was his plot all along, but then it was actually the Time Master from Chrono Trigger, was his secret plot all along to have all this happen, and then it was like this different character from Chrono Trigger, it was her plot all along. There's like 10 points where it's like, but secretly you were all being manipulated by this person, and it never stops.
Okay, so this segues into what I think is happening in Chrono Cross, and it has nothing to do with Chrono Cross.
Okay.
It has everything to do with Chrono Trigger and those guys in their time ship completely ruining time over and over and over. So, in some other parallel dimension, we had a great sequel to Chrono Trigger. But those idiots in the time ship kept screwing things up, and now we are stuck in a dimension where Chrono Cross was the sequel to Chrono Trigger. Like a different version of you and I are right now sitting in front of microphones talking about the most amazing sequel to Chrono Trigger and how it was life-changing, and every night we go to sleep crying thinking about the plot to Chrono Cross. And here we're stuck in this dimension saying, I wish there was a way to take a scrubbing brush, shove it in my ear, and erase the part of my brain that knows about Chrono Cross.
Yeah, it really, like you were saying, it doesn't feel like a Chrono Trigger sequel at all. It feels like its own thing. And specifically, it kind of has like the feel of like a really bad Suikoden sequel. There's a ton of characters that you can get. 45, yeah. So like it's like half of a Suikoden game. You know, it's bright and colorful with happy music and some dialogue that was intended to be humorous. It feels like not a good one, but it feels like a Suikoden game rather than a Chrono game. And it's just a really weird thing to have had happen.
Suikoden, you can talk to the characters and you're like, oh, you're an interesting character. Here, you're like, I guess you're a character they made for this game to be on my team, but I'm just going to use the French girl, Kid, and Surge, or whatever body Surge is in at the time.
Well, the problem is, early in the game, you have to choose between like 3 characters that you can have, and you can only get one. And 2 of the characters are like whatever, and one of the characters is maybe the greatest character in the history of RPGs, to the point where I have this notebook full of notes. All of these notes are just about how great Nikki is. Nikki is the guy that's a rock star. Nikki is amazing. There's a part where you have to go into this place called the Shadow Forest, and it's full of monsters or whatever. And you meet Nikki there, and Nikki's just there. He's not fighting. He's not on a quest or anything. He's just singing. He just went out to the forest to like sing at monsters. All his attacks involve him just like playing the guitar at his opponents, and that does damage somehow. And he headbangs during the victory poses. Nikki is amazing.
Okay, so we now have one good character in Chrono Cross.
Yes.
One.
Yeah. His signature attack is actually to just take his guitar and smash it over one of your opponent's heads like he's the Honky Tonk Man. I mean, he looks like Marilyn Manson, kind of, and he fights like the Honky Tonk Man, and it's just the best.
Nikki's great, yes. If his last name was Six, that would be better. So, one important thing in a Chrono game is you're shifting through time, and in this one, dimensions. So, they do the revolutionary thing where they remove that ability from you for a while. So, like, we know what you're here for, and you can't have it. Please keep playing the game. We promise it gets better. But they lied.
Yes, they lie a lot.
I don't know if younger me finished this game. I think younger me might have got disgusted with this game. I only made it like 5 hours into this game prepping for this show because there's some sort of scar in the hole that my soul should exist in, and it's bleeding, and it's got the words Chrono Cross etched into it. And that wound just got opened up, and I was like, oh no, the horrors of 99 have returned to me in the form of this garbage game.
You know, just all the horrors of 1999 come through with it. Like, all of a sudden, like, Fred Durst is in your living room, and
I would rather go to a Limp Bizkit concert than ever think of Chrono Cross again.
Oh my god. Wow, there's no walking that one back, is there?
And if Creed is opening for them, all the better.
Will Linkin Park be there, or that's probably a little more in the future?
Sure, they can show up, whatever.
Did you get far enough into it to have the boss fight against a giant tulip bulb?
Not this time. I think I spent most of my time just wandering around trying not to get into fights.
Yeah.
Okay, pro tip I'm going to give away. I played this game in emulation, and as Brad said, the fight in the actual version is aggravatingly slow. He read the entire Declaration of Independence while waiting for one move to happen, I'm assuming.
I read an entire plot analysis of this game while I was waiting for one fight to happen. It still took 30 minutes.
So I went into the emulator because I was like, this is such garbage. And I took off the frame rate limiter and got this thing cranked up to about 240 frames a second, which is 4 times what it natively runs at. And the fights last probably 45 seconds. And it's beautiful, Brad. You keep holding down one button and it just blows through the fight. The cinemas go by a little bit fast and the audio's messed up, but who cares? It's Chrono Cross. But no, I did not fight the giant tulip this time.
You know, that's like a fight that they like hype up for you. Like you stumble into this laboratory and you get captured, and the mad scientist is like, "You're going to have to fight my newest creation." And it's like, "Oh no, is it a Frankenstein?" And it's like, "No, it's a big tulip bulb."
Your team just looks at the scientist as like, "You're the worst scientist to ever science."
I mean, on one hand, it was a really big tulip bulb. If you were growing tulips, that would probably be a fantastic scientific breakthrough. If you're making combat monsters,
What exactly does a giant tulip provide for humanity in any way, shape, or form? Can you eat a tulip?
No, it's a big tulip. It'll look cool.
So the whole goal was to make a giant tulip.
Yes.
Now, did this tulip suddenly become sentient, or was it on purpose a sentient tulip bulb?
It does have sentience, which makes the boss fight a little more challenging than if it just kind of like tipped over and laid there while you like carved it up.
I mean, it's Chrono Cross. I half expect it to just lay there while you hack it up with the scientist in the background crying like, "No, my baby!
My life's work. I spent 20 minutes on that.
I even had time for a poop."
You know, I think you could tell everything you need to know about the quality of this game just by the fact that, like, there's a strategic battle aspect to it, and you're supposed to set up your magic attacks to play into this strategy. There's bonus characters that you can go find. There's side quests. There's all kinds of little bonus. And I didn't care about any of that. I'm like, I should set up my... I'm not going to. Oh, there might be a secret... I don't care. I just want to get this over with.
That is the through line for Chrono Cross for me, is I don't want to. Like, I really hated San Francisco Rush, but I don't have the energy to apply that level of hate to Chrono Cross.
Yeah.
I don't think it's even worthy getting mad about, because it's hardly a video game at all. I mean, it's functionally a video game, but it is so convoluted and crappy.
Yeah.
And I had played another JRPG in the year 2000. The Legend of Dragoon.
Okay, so that was a game that I had a reserve on, and then when the game actually came out, the store called me, and I'm like, you know what? Cancel the reserve.
So I had just come off Legends of Dragoon, and this game, you get these cool things on your arm, and then in the battle, you turn into these crazy dragoon flying knight people.
Okay.
And the battles are explosive and colorful, and it has a plot line. You are fighting this miasma that's covering the world, and you must save everybody. And weird monsters are coming out of this stuff, and you can traverse into it where normal people cannot. So you had the thing you had to do, you go out and do it, you have some side quests, you win, everybody cheers, it's great. And in Chrono Cross, the entire plot of Legend of Dragoon, which has a start, middle, end, that's like the first 20 minutes of Chrono Cross. And then it has another start, middle, end. And then another, and then another. And then the first one involves the last one, and the last one involves the first one. And I think they thought they needed to twist up this game really hard because they got in their mind that's how Chrono Trigger actually was, where Chrono Trigger wasn't like that at all. It was a story in sequence that made sense and resolved things before it started a new problem. But Chrono Cross just makes problems and then doesn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a fervent fan community trying to justify Chrono Trigger's existence.
No.
But there's a foaming at the mouth community trying to convince you Chrono Cross actually is a good game.
No.
Like, it reviewed well. Look at all the great reviews. It must be awesome. It's like, hey buddies, this is when everyone stopped trusting reviewers all at once. Like, we all came together and said, Square and EA gave them money.
No, not GameSpot. GameSpot wouldn't take bribes from a publisher.
Oh, no, they never did that more than once.
That we know about.
The review copy of Chrono Cross had to come with at least $100 inside that jewel case. Here's your special review copy. Don't tell your editor about this. That's the note on the inside. And just, here's the score we want you to give it. 95%. And the GameSpot guy's like, I can do you 5 better, buddy.
You get 1 point for every $1.
Perfect game. No game has ever been this great in history.
Yeah. One thing that happens in the game that is kind of reflective of our attitudes towards it is, and something I wish more RPGs would incorporate, is you can walk off on people while they're talking to you. You can, like, walk up to a townsperson and they'll be like, oh, this concert's coming up and I'm super, and you can just, while they're talking about it, you can just be like, don't care, and start walking away on them. So that's pretty great. That's my favorite part of this game, I think, is just, I imagine my guy's just like a surly, angry guy, and people are like, oh, Surge, I wanted to tell you all about this potion. I go, don't care. Walks out off the screen.
Now, I have a question about the very beginning of this game.
Okay.
When you go meet your girlfriend at the very beginning on the pier.
Yeah.
Are you guys, like, getting engaged, or are you dating? Because it keeps, like, bouncing between she's kind of talking like they're going to spend the rest of their life together, and then she's like, you're a bad boyfriend. And then jumps back to, I can't wait until we spend forever together. And was the dragon scale necklace, like, a proposal item in this culture? Like, what was going on from the jump?
Well, it's a small village. Like, those are the only 2 teenagers in the village. So there's one boy teenager, there's one girl teenager, and, it's pretty much just a given that they're gonna get married at some point. What I love is, like, how much does the universe not want these 2 to get together? Like, I don't know if you've ever, like, had a relationship that was like this, or, like, had a friend or something, or seen it, where, like, it just seems like the universe is against this, like, they both like each other, but the timing just never works out, or, like, right after they start dating, they're still teenagers, and, like, the one's family moves away, and they never see each other again, just, like, cursed, doomed relationships, and, like, this one, they're doing okay. She wants a necklace. Like, that's the only thing we really learn about her, is that she wants a necklace from him, which makes her seem kind of demanding. Maybe she's really nice otherwise. She just really wanted this thing. But all of a sudden, like, he just gets sucked into another dimension. It turns out that was, like, part of, like, this, like, grand conspiracy by, like, 10 different parties, one of which involves sending a different woman to, like, go meet up with him, and they end up in one of the endings getting married, or it's implied. Yeah, like, somebody just hates this couple so much that they're like, let's pull him into a different universe where he died, and then let's give him a different girl to hang out with and have adventures with.
I want to think that the entire conspiracy around around their relationship started with that guy in the park in Chrono Trigger doing a line of cocaine and then clapping his hands real loud and like, okay, let's do this. Like, that's how this all started.
We're shipping Kid and that dead guy. I don't care that he's got a girlfriend. Too bad for her. I mean, she's gonna just be an old maid now. There's no one else in that village for her to marry. She'll end up being like the chieftain's third wife or something.
The whole Chrono Trigger team's in that park in the future, and the creepy guy with trench coat's like, hey, you guys want to see me doing something real funny with someone's life? And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, watch this. And he just shifts him to another dimension. He's like, he's dead in this dimension and she doesn't know who he is. Isn't that awesome? Like, man, what is wrong with you?
It's like, hey, you see that little fishing village with that girl in it? Yeah. She seems nice, doesn't she? Yeah, I guess. Well, screw her!
We think about, oh, this is awful for Surge, but there's a timeline where she's just sitting on the beach and she's like, oh, finally, I'm so happy in my life. And he just winked out of existence. He sees a wave coming in and then, boop, he's gone.
Yeah.
And she's alone on the beach like she was just looking at him and just gone.
What's she gonna tell his mom?
So she's getting tried for murder.
Yeah.
Like, we know you killed him. He gave you the necklace. You killed him and then hid the body. Where's the body? And she might not end up as an old maid in the town because probably executed or something for murder.
Probably burned as a witch. Like she blinked him out of existence.
He eventually gets back to that timeline. And if they're like, oh, we burned her at the stake because she made you wink out of existence. He's like, hey, oh man, she's the only other person my age.
You know, if you go back to your home dimension at a later point, you run into her and she's just like, hey, that's weird, you disappeared. And now you're just like here with a rock star and this other girl. Like, is that the famous Nikki?
This is Nikki. This is my new girlfriend. You're kind of boring. You just wanted a necklace. She wanted a piece of a dragon's flame.
We like got into a fight with a panther, man. Like, you and I never broke into mansions and got into fights with panther men.
I meant mechanized guys whose arms come off to punch you in the face. I think we just had more fun with the plot than this game had with the plot. You're on this fishing village, so there's boats. Are we to believe the only inhabitants these people know of are the people in the fishing village? No one's gone out to see if there's other people?
There's a city that they know about. They talk about it, but it's like one guy's been there. He's like, yeah, that was a big city.
Here's what I think happened with Chrono Cross, is they had this grand idea. I mean, they probably had this grand sweeping Final Fantasy VII level idea. But then they realized how much of this 3D art they would have to make for these backgrounds. And they're like, you know, we can't really have him going to medieval Jurassic future because we're going to have to redo all this art each time. Well, what if he just planar shift to the exact same place and we use the same art?
What I liked, and it almost made sense. You know, they started off on a good idea and then they Chrono Crossed it. The reason that Surge can go between these two worlds is because he doesn't exist in the other one because he died as a small child. So he can go into the other world because he doesn't already exist there. And it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But then you can bring your party members back and forth with you all the time. And it doesn't matter. And they can meet themselves and it doesn't like explode the universe or they don't like merge into one person. They're just like, oh, hey, other me. That's weird.
I wish you could take your party members to meet the other thems and it just was a total time cop moment where they melt into each other and then a puddle of goo and Surge is like, I never get tired of that, ever. So there's 45 characters in this game, like you said before. And I started reading. I did not know this fact. You cannot get them all through one playthrough.
Yes, that is true.
So the game gives you New Game Plus, where you can play this classic JRPG again to collect the people you haven't got yet.
Yeah.
But 2 playthroughs are not enough to get all the characters.
Or all the endings.
So guess what you get to do?
Play through a third time.
Why would you want to play through a first time?
In the New Game Plus, you do keep, I think, not your equipment, but you keep your levels and some other stuff. So being overpowered through most of the rest of the game at that point means that most of these battles, instead of taking 40 minutes, will only take about 20 to like kill one random guy.
Whoa, that's completely worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll cut the time in half.
Maybe you have to get to like New Game 5, and then it's like, hey, you made it to New Game Plus 5. Here's the secret, and they actually tell you the real story of Chrono Cross.
You know, to give you kind of an idea just like how convoluted all of this is, there's one island that's full of like demi-humans, which are like half beast, half people, and they don't trust humans. If you go to their village, they kind of like, you should leave, but they don't actually make you leave. You talk to the one guy and he's just like, humans are bad luck. 14 years ago they were coming, but then there was a storm and they were lost. But maybe they weren't? Anyway, humans are bad. I might have paraphrased that a little, but that's pretty much the dialogue. It's just like this meandering story about how humans maybe got lost in a storm, but maybe didn't, but they're bad.
I wish the center of their village had just a giant statue of Frog. It's like our god. I think a great fix to this game would be when you meet Fate, the supercomputer. You're like, it's 99. Why don't I just install Windows 98 on you? And he's like, no, don't do that. Please don't. And then just dump the blue screen. We fixed time.
We fixed it with Windows 98.
That would be the first thing Windows 98 ever fixed. So, I'm still disappointed by Chrono Cross.
I am now too.
We're like, what, almost 20 years past Chrono Cross's release.
Yeah.
In 2019, it will be 20 years since Chrono Cross sullied hundreds of thousands of PlayStations across America and Japan.
It's such a disappointment because on paper, it did so many things right. The music, the visuals, the innovations to the battle system. You don't have to grind your characters. Like, in between boss fights, you can do, like, if you do 2 or 3 fights, you're fully leveled up until the next boss fight. You know, there's a lot of neat stuff happening here, but the battles are just, it's pulling teeth. You know, you only have to do 2 or 3 to get fully leveled, but you'll actually have to do like 9 or 10. After a couple of them, you're just like, no, thank you. Please make this end. Every time the game starts to feel a little bit fun, it does something to just like punch you right in the nose. And it's just like, oh, are you enjoying this? Well, hold on. Crack!
You don't have to grind your characters to level up because every single fight feels like you're grinding to level your character up. It's like 6 hours of Final Fantasy VII condensed into a 3-minute fight.
It's like, well, you know, most RPGs you might spend an hour or two doing random battle, doing like, you know, 100 battles to get your guys leveled up. This one, you're going to spend 2 or 3 hours doing 4 fights to get your guys leveled up. You know what's really kind of annoying about the color magic system? This game came out in 2000. Magic the Gathering, the card game, had been out for about 5 years at this point. It also uses a color system where, you know, like things have opposites and stuff. It only uses 5 colors, whereas Chrono Cross uses 6. And it works so much better because each color has 2 opposites and 2 similar colors. And if they could have just like done that for Chrono Cross, I think that system would have been a lot better, because right now it's just like everything has 1 opposite and then like 4 of the colors are just kind of irrelevant. And I think it would have been a lot more dynamic if like every spell had a dramatic impact on like who's stronger and who's less strong. It would have added a lot more strategy, and that combined with speeding it the hell up might have made this passable.
And maybe ditching Surge and bringing back Chrono and the team.
Yeah, that probably would have helped too.
To have adventures through, you know, the Chronoverse instead of the string of verse.
We didn't feel like drawing any more artwork averse. The budget verse.
The budget verse. There you go. We're doing battle with the budget verse. We want you to make a sequel to Chrono Trigger what's our budget? Oh, we don't want to give you money to make the sequel. Just make it good. They don't even have enough money to put complete pants on the main character. Do you kids like board shorts?
And bandanas? Because this guy looks cool. He's running around with his like double sword on a pole in his board shorts and bandana. He's like, I'm a pirate. I'm 17.
Everyone was like, man, he got hit by too many coconuts in the head when he was 5.
It's almost like somebody tried to drown him as a small child and he got brain damage. He never stopped wearing the same clothes since then.
In one of the strings, it actually worked, and the village was better for it.
The whole world was better.
The computer's like, hey, I have to pull him into this one because this one is so good. I have to ruin it with his presence. And there's a dragon who's like, I'm a dragon.
Rawr.
And I need a small child to steal my power for me. That's a crappy dragon, Brad.
Yes.
You gotta send like a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old to get your power back.
But on the plus side, Nikki. They should make a Chrono Cross spin-off that's just like Nikki's Adventure. Like Chrono Cross X2.
I think we are a little too late for that.
Probably.
I'm guessing that the critical acclaim was quickly beat down by people saying, hey, did you buy these reviews?
The critical acclaim lasted right up until the point where people actually started playing it.
Maybe those people on the internet trying to convince everyone Chrono Cross is a great game are the people who lost their jobs because they wrote positive reviews for Chrono Cross.
Oh, the world is not that just.
They probably have, yachts and Ferraris.
Last time I checked, WeTakeBribesSpot.com is like still operating. So the world is not that just.
And I know as an adult, quote unquote, that the management at GameSpot is probably different. Every single editor at GameSpot is probably different than the 1999 crew, but I just still can't do it. Like, that's how deep the wound is. I just can't. Because I'd see their stupid logo and be like, oh,
Chrono Cross.
It's the betrayers of truth. That's probably it. I mean, we went from super positive, like, yay, Chrono Trigger, into Chrono Cross. Ugh.
I'm really looking forward to, as soon as we're done recording this show, I'm going to turn on my PS3 and uninstall Chrono Cross, and it's going to be glorious.
Hopefully that is the last time you ever have to deal with this game.
Yeah, so if any of our listeners out there are like, man, it sounds like they really love Chrono Cross, I should check that out. Do yourself a favor, go on YouTube. There's like music videos with the songs from the soundtrack, and then they just added, like clips from the game or whatever. Watch those. They're like 5 minutes long. It takes half as much time as just one regular battle in the game. You'll be getting the only good parts of the game, and you won't have to suffer for it.
Or just go play Chrono Trigger.
That's your answer to everything, Donald.
Do you have any final thought?
No.
If you're like, man, I agree with everything they just said, you can find all our contact stuff in the show notes. You want to email us to tell us how right we were about how bad Chrono Cross is, that link's there too.
If you want to contact us and tell us all about how we are being really unfair to the plot of Chrono Cross, and if we would just read your Angel Fire site, we would understand what's actually going on in the game, you don't need to contact us.
No. We'll be sad. We'll be so sad if someone's like, I listened to your show and here's what you got wrong about Chrono Cross. Because I just checked with science and we were 100% right about everything in Chrono Cross. But if you do just want to stop by and say my condolences for you playing Chrono Cross on our Facebook or our Twitter, that's cool. I don't think I'm ever going to touch this game again.
No.
I'm going to actively repress it for the next 2 decades again, to the point that I forget about it.
When you say actively repress it, do you mean in your own memory, or do you mean like you're going to go to used game stores and buy all their copies of Chrono Cross and then destroy destroy them in front of, like, the cashier.
I'm going to sit on my sofa, stare blankly into the void, recall everything I can about Chrono Cross, and then just put it in a bottle in my mind, and then sink that bottle deep down as I possibly can with all past memories I don't enjoy, and then just let it lie there for the rest of time. And when I'm on my deathbed, I'll probably recall it, and my family will be like, oh no, he's finally lost it. There's a supercomputer.
It had a German accent for some reason.
Nurse, give me a pillow. I have to do this. He's going to tell us more about Chrono Cross. He made me promise to do this if he ever did this. And I would want it that way. That's gonna do it. I'm sad, Donald. That was Time Shifting Brad, and we will see you next week.
I think that's been, like, the way their whole career has gone. Yeah, they can show up.